What does Beto O'Rourke think about student loan debt? Does he want to cancel student loan debt? Here are his solutions.
My question to you is, as president, what would you do to urge the private student loan companies to offer repayment plans similar to the government's income-based repayment plans?
There's $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loan debt right now, a default rate of close to 10%, which shows us that far too many are unable to shoulder this burden for very long. They're literally sinking under the weight of it. It's a drag on them, and it's a drag on our economy. If we want to open up this economy to everyone and deal with the crisis that you just described, there are two big things that we can do. The first is to stop digging the hole. Let's make sure that you do not accumulate debt if you are attending a community college or a four-year university. Let's make community free for everyone in this country. And let's ensure that four-year college, all costs, not just tuition, but room and board and books, can be finished debt-free for those of modest and middle income means, and others who are able to pay their way should do so. And then the other big thing that we can do is refinance, to your question, existing student loan debt at the lowest possible rates for everyone who has it right now, whether the issuer was the government or a private issuer. And then the other thing that we can do, and I like this idea a lot, is to vastly expand the public service loan forgiveness program. There are 45,000 unfilled positions at the VA right now. That means that veterans are waiting not minutes or hours, but weeks and months to get in to see a provider. If you're willing to go work at the VA and fill one of those 45,000 clinical positions, let's wipe clean and clear your debt so you can focus on taking care of those service members.
I hated that answer. So just to emphasize what he thinks are good solutions. Free community college, cool, it's a good start, not good enough. Four-year college, not free for everyone, but it should be debt-free, meaning that people who can't afford to go to a public four-year institution would get some help from the government, but people who can pay would have to pay their own way. Look, I know some people might buy into that and buy into the logic that, hey, if someone can pay for it, why shouldn't they pay for it? But here's the thing, wealthy families aren't sending their wealthy kids to public colleges. They're sending their kids to expensive private colleges, to Ivy Leagues. Let's just make public four-year institutions free, period.
Yeah, it's a backdoor to eventually charging the middle class. Because they're gonna say, well, if you work the rest of your life, you can pay it off, so you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, why is elementary school not free as long as you don't make too much money?
And look,
because it doesn't need to be. That's not an issue, it's a fake issue.
And here's what is likely to happen. Let's say in his utopian world, he gets what he wants and these solutions are actually implemented. Okay, just look at what happened with Pell Grants. Pell Grants used to mean something. They don't mean much anymore. I mean, they have not kept up with the cost of tuition. They have been underfunded. It's dealt with all sorts of cuts because Republicans want to cut it. So if you have some sort of government program that offers more grants to needy students, that is going to get attacked over and over and over again. And it'll dwindle to something honestly insignificant. And I just don't want to deal with that. And then finally, refinance existing student loans. No, that doesn't solve the problem. You still have massive student loan debt. I got it, we'll keep charging you guys interest on it. We might lower the interest a little bit, but you're still gonna have this massive amount of student loan debt. No.
I agree, that's not nearly as good as other solutions, but if you're talking about private loans, if you're taking the interest rate down, he specifically said to the amount that banks are loaned by the government, that would be significant. Understand, all of this is far worse than multiple other candidates' plans, which I totally accept. And I would say that the most important thing that you need to know about Beto O'Rourke's plan on education is that you should go read Elizabeth Warren's plan on education because it's way better. It's really good, and she has a post on Medium that breaks it down. It's awesome.
So much better. It is so much better. And one other thing, he was specific. He said refinance both public and private, or government and private loans. No, I'm not interested in refinancing. I'm just not, right?
No, I'm with John on this one, but I don't trust him that he means it. Like if they really brought it down to the interest rate that banks pay, that's close to nothing, right? But you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna start there and then he's gonna negotiate it up because that's his style, and you see it in every answer. And so the thing about being debt free for the people who can't afford it, et cetera, is that when you also start making a distinction between the wealthy and the non-wealthy, now you guys have watched the show. Do we look like we're overprotecting the wealthy? Right? It's not something we're often accused of. But when you make a two-tiered system, what winds up happening is, since the wealthy are not part of it, they start to pick it apart.
Yeah.
Okay, the donor class then goes on a long-term mission to destroy it. The only reason why Social Security is as popular as it is and has never been destroyed is because everybody participates. And same with Medicare. That's why they both poll amazingly well. That's why they do come up with deceptive names like Medicare for America, which actually would be a two-tiered system and would go to destroy the Medicare system.
Exactly.
Right, but so don't let them do that to you, okay? Everybody knows we're here fighting for everybody in the country, and especially the middle class, the poor, et cetera. But you've got to apply it to everyone, otherwise it won't work.
Absolutely. So one other answer in regard to student loan debt, remember $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. He also mentioned expanding the loan forgiveness program because that's working out so well right now, isn't it? I mean, you have Betsy DeVos, who's essentially saying, no, we're not gonna forgive these student loans. So if again, you get your utopian world where all of these plans are implemented, who's to say that a Republican like Trump, maybe even worse than Trump, I mean, anything's possible these days, gets elected, puts someone even dumber and more horrible than Betsy DeVos in the education department, who's to say that that person wouldn't do exactly what Betsy DeVos is doing now? We need a better fix, a permanent fix, a fix that would not allow an incoming Republican to come in and tear everything apart. Finally, the last video on student loan debt.
There's a total of $1.5 trillion in student debt out there. Would you support any plan to forgive all of it?
No, but I think I would start with those steps that we just described. If you're willing to move back to your hometown, a small community, in an underserved job that's in demand, I want to make sure that you're rewarded for doing that you can focus on your family, your career, getting ahead, contributing to your community by wiping clear that debt. There are others who have the means to pay that back, and I don't know that we want to be in the business of rewarding the very wealthiest in this country. Not everyone wants to go to college. So if you are going to be career ready at the age of 18 or 19, I want to make sure that we empower and lift up unions in this country.
I also want to know which metric is going to be used to determine who's too wealthy to have their student loan debt forgiven. The reason why I say that is because as someone who had 2 immigrant parents and did not grow up in a wealthy household, I remember filling out those FAFSA documents, right? I was working at a coffee shop, obviously not making enough money to pay for college, and my parents, they based it all on what my parents were making. My mom is a stay-at-home mom. That year that I graduated college, luckily, 222, my dad was finally making some money from the apartment buildings that he spent his entire life paying off. But let's say me and my dad had no relationship. Let's say me and my dad didn't get along and he had no intention of helping me pay for college. Why are they basing my ability to pay for college based on what my father's making?
Yeah, let alone the fact that they're gonna keep on moving that down until it affects almost all the middle class. And they're gonna say, well, you can't pay it now, but you can pay it later after you get a job working for corporations at the rates that they demand, et cetera. So I'm not buying that. Second of all, if you think that's a loose standard, what is this thing about if you move back to a small town, those are the only ones who are gonna pay off? I didn't even, what is that? And how small does the town have to be?
I know, it was so ridiculous. That's such a bizarre non-answer. I think going back to what Cenk, you were saying in terms of the ways that programs that are super piecemeal, because what this sounds like is a little bit like the ACA of education, right? And what happens is that the wealthy slowly but surely pick apart those programs that are meant for other people. But on the contrary, throw the wealthy in with everybody. Put everyone in the same boat, and then what happens? Now, and then suddenly they have to care for the public sector. Suddenly they have to care for everybody. So in fact, it doesn't work, I think, the way that he's painting it as, like, well, the wealthy shouldn't be given a handout. It's like, no. Let them take some responsibility for this.
I think Democrats believe it's like a super clever strategy to twist this and make it seem like, oh, what the progressives are asking for really helps the wealthy. No. I think they really underestimate how smart young people are, specifically the young people who are dealing with this crippling student loan debt. We know what the reality is. We know that wealthy, families aren't sending their kids. Like, there were no wealthy kids going to Cal State Northridge.
Yeah.
There just weren't. Like, let's keep it 100.
And I hope not, but that sort of plan in a debate could be used against a more universal plan like a Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. I remember in 2016, I believe it was Hillary Clinton, was like, I'm not gonna support a plan that lets Donald Trump's kids go to wherever. I'm like, I went to UConn. If Donald Trump wants to send his kids, he can. He's not going to. It's not gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah, remember,
it's just a fake weapon to use against more universal programs like Bernie Sanders.
Now, I'm going to give a caveat to that, and I'm going to talk about it related to a crack mayor in a second. So let me begin that. In Turkey, they have college for all, and so and that's how my dad got a college education. He was incredibly poor. Otherwise, none of us would have ever made it. But what winds up happening when you do that is, first of all, everybody wants to get into the public colleges. So they might actually want to go to UConn. You know why? Because the best of the best get to go into the public colleges that are free. So even wealthy people are like, well, I mean, that's the best college because it's being supported. Plus, it's prestigious to get in, right?
Oh, actually, let me really fast. I'm also a little bit dating myself. When I went to UConn, that was like everyone in my high school basically got into UConn. Apparently now it's super hard to get in. So if you have recently gotten to UConn, congratulations. I'm not trying to drag you down.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? When I got into UPenn, people like Donald Trump were getting into UPenn. now it's like near impossible, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, and it's like and to Francesca's point, it's like the system in Finland where they took away all private schools for high schools, junior highs, and elementary school. Here in America, that would make our heads explode. You know what happened? Rich people had to go to public schools. So they're like, we're gonna make those way better.
Exactly.
Right? And they shot up to top 3 across the world, partly based on that fact alone. So finally, the crack mayor. So if you institute a plan that works for everyone, poor, middle class, and wealthy, it can never be taken away. So if you did college for all like they did in Turkey, no one ever argued against it because that was their ticket out of the villages, that was their ticket out of farming, etc. It doesn't matter how right wing you are, nobody's touching that forever because it actually works so well for the people. Now in Canada, they have single payer. Even Rob Ford, who was the crack mayor of Toronto, who not only was an insane right-winger, but literally on crack.
Smoked crack.
Yes, while mayor, did not suggest taking away single payer because even he wasn't that crazy. In Canada, it doesn't matter how right-wing you are. No one would ever dare to suggest taking away single payer because it's that popular and it works that well. And that is what the Republicans are so scared of. My God, if you guys actually give a program that works for everyone in America, we'll never be able to undo it, just like Social Security
and
Medicare.
this is even worse than that, because not only that, you're having college-educated Americans. No, because no one's voting Republican again.
Exactly, and so when Democrats like Beto O'Rourke help them by going, hey, we'll go middle ground approach and we'll leave the private option out there so that it could attack the public option, that is not helpful, it's actually counterproductive.
Yeah, and besides which, I mean, Beto O'Rourke is in the House of Representatives, and if you're concerned about helping the wealthy, you should be concerned about how the wealthy have gotten corporate welfare for how long now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and has he been on the warpath on that? No. So look, there should be plenty of private options for sneakers, burgers, etc. But when it comes to the American dream, educating your kids and actually protecting their lives through healthcare, that is where there is a better system and the rest of the developed world uses it, so should we. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.